Hey, change makers and visionaries. This is Reimagining Community, where we dive deep into the stories of leaders who are reshaping the world, one community at a time. I'm your host, Garland Fuller, and every episode is a radical act of connection. We're not just talking about change, we're breaking down how real people are creating it right here, right now. This podcast is more than conversations. It's a bridge where we are sharing stories that offer insight and inspiration. Whether you're an entrepreneur, consultant, volunteer, artist, or an organizational leader, this is your space to listen and learn. This is your call to create impact in the communities you hold dear and that hold you up. Let's reimagine what's possible together. Today's conversation is with Eugenia Chen. She and I go back to our days at UC Berkeley. She is 13 years of experience in strategic planning, program management, and team leadership. She specializes in business processes, creator and nonprofit and partner experience, and I can't wait to talk to her today. She is going to share so much. Most of what she's sharing is going to be around how to do digital storytelling, how to create partner relationships that work for both parties. And of course, she's going to talk about how her own journey from starting a blog has turned into something really amazing. So we go back. Let's talk about how we go back, because I feel like the UC Berkeley housing department had a lot to do with that.
Thank goodness for that.
Thank God for that. I mean, we were, I'd say, just fresh-faced, beautiful, young women. We're still very much fresh-faced today, but we required a little more work. But yeah, it's been fantastic. I feel like first time away, college, you meet people. Dorms are always, I feel like, of course, the place where we do it. But for me, I remember meeting you and thinking, wow, she's really smart. She's like got her stuff together. Like, oh my gosh.
Well, this is my, obviously, like, first time away from home, had never been to Berkeley. I would just decided to go there for college sight and seeing, and I get to the dorms, and there you are, Garland. You were very put together. I was not. I needed some fashion help.
And we can talk about like how we've, I'd say, evolved over time, because I remember when you told me you were an engineering major, and I was like, what? You're like so cool.
Oh, no, I knew Star Wars from Star Trek, but that was like the most I had in common with my classmates, probably. I studied electrical engineering. It's very, there were like maybe just a handful of girls in our class. So it's definitely an interesting experience. My life has really taken a big leap around that degree. But I feel like you and I, we have both really explored a lot about, like, we studied this in college. Well, what does that mean now that you're, a grown up?
For sure. Yeah. So I can tell you that I just cannot see you being an engineer. So the fact that you're not doing it anymore is not surprising to me. I was like, she's just too cool for this. No shade to engineers. Think they're fantastic people. I just know that you're like, you got stuff going on.
It was not my path. And I think when you're young and you're in college, it's a little bit hard to tell if, like, do I really like doing these math problems, or do I just enjoy doing hard things? Like, do I just enjoy the challenge versus like the problem sets themselves? And I think that, engineering really wasn't my passion. I enjoyed, like being able to figure things out. And I think that really was the core of it, figuring out complex things and not necessarily, like, code a robot or
For
whatever
sure.
it is we would be doing nowadays.
Yeah. And then you pivoted into journalism, which I
I
think is
did.
really who you are.
Yeah. And I feel like you and I kind of share this in common, like getting to know people, and in the storytelling, I feel like comes more naturally to some than others. And for me, like, I love writing. I love kind of putting together a story and really getting people to pay attention to someone else's life story or what's going on with other people. So I think those were really exciting things. I was a reporter for about 4 or 5 years. I made a career change after college. I was in San Francisco. So that was where I really feel like I got to learn about like what do I like in my job? What do I feel passionate about? Like what do I need my work environment to be? Journalism will test you. I would say that.
Journalism will test you. Okay. I remember when you started doing Muni Diaries
Yes.
because I just thought, wow, like what is this space? And I remember I feel like you were early with this whole like using digital spaces to storytell, using digital spaces to bring people together. Like tell me how you got started in that.
Well, we were talking about being in journalism just now, and I actually started mini diaries with a couple of friends that I met in a journalism class while we were all, trying to find our way. And for listeners who are not from San Francisco, Muni is the public transit system in San Francisco. It is our bus, and if you've been on it even once, you will know that anything can happen. And just when you think you've seen it all, like something would surprise you. So, like my friends and I, we were in journalism school. We were broke as reporters are. And, we took the bus to school, and every time we saw each other, we would be like, you would not believe what happened on the bus today. So, for one of our projects in journalism school, we were tasked to start a magazine. So, we were like, hey, that thing that we always talk about, what happens on the bus every day? Why don't we make that into a part of our project, this magazine? So we made a magazine about San Francisco. We named it 415, the zip code. I would not do that today. But so we presented this like magazine idea to like a panel of professional journalists and our teacher and our classmates. And included in that presentation was this kind of like front of the book like idea of mini diaries. So we did our presentation, we're psyched about it, and the panel were like, that magazine, it's just okay. But that mini diaries thing sounds really fun. So this was in 2008, beginning of the internet. My classmates and I, just two friends and I, we were like, you know, websites are cheap. Why don't we buy the domain like you do? And WordPress is free. Why don't we start that? So that's really how we started, kind of as a community for people who ride the bus like us to share stories about what happened there. And, it's still going strong today.
Yeah, but I know it has evolved over time. So I know you've been involved in the evolution of it. Can you talk about when you realized you had like built something that people were, I don't want to say following, but like
Hmm.
interested in? Because
Yeah.
you started like me and my friends were just going to talk about what happens on the bus every day. And then suddenly other people are like, yeah, let's talk about what happened on the bus today.
Well, when we started Mini Diaries, my co-founder Tara Renrup and I, we've always kind of envisioned it as a place for anyone who rides the bus to talk about what happened, right? So it wasn't really about us, but it was just a place for people to kind of, like we like to say, blow up the party talk, right? So we would ask like our friends and family, anybody we met, we would talk about it. And we're like, oh, if something happened to you on the bus, like email us here at Mini Diaries SF and tell us our stories. So for I think about the first 6 months, every time we got like a story in the email, we were like so excited. We would ask each other, do you know this person? Do you know this person? And I'd be like, oh yeah, that's my coworker. So like this kind of went on for a couple of months. And then about 5 or 6 months in, we started realizing we are actually getting stories from people we don't know, which is what we wanted. So I think that moment when we were asking one another, do you know this person? Is this your coworker? Or is like, is this your mom's friend? And it was actually like legit someone just from out in the world riding the bus. We kind of knew that this is probably going to work. People like talking about it, and now they're excited to share what happened on public transit with other
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
And how do you think that changed like how you started to see storytelling or just how you took that experience into the next kind of thing that you were doing? Because I feel like you've done a lot of interesting work with organizations, brands. I mean, you can talk about what you want to talk about. That's the beauty of this podcast.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel like that journalism thread is there, but just there's an authenticity piece and this understanding of like people are there. We just have to bring them in.
Yeah. You know, the friends that started Media Diaries with me, we were all journalists and we love storytelling. We love getting people to talk about their lives. And I think because of that shared passion for storytelling or for people to come together to talk about something in the community, that's what really made Media Diaries work. And we started a live show where people came together and told stories actually in real life, and that turned into a podcast. So from that, like at the core of it, what we were really excited about is how do you get a bunch of people that you don't know to A, do something on the internet, and B, really come together as a community to do something that they all care about. And how do you help this group of people, this new group of people, that have come together to find kind of a common thread and to find something that they care about? In this case, it was public transit, right? Like what happened on transit? Like, do transit riders kind of band together and make sure the back door opens for people to get off? But my friends and I, we all ultimately used our experience in Media Diaries to get jobs that are like kind of in the tech and corporate world. I was at Pop Sugar and then I was at Meta. My co-founder, she was at Zendesk. And at the end of the day, what we were taking from our kind of passion project was how do you get people excited on the internet to do something? And how do you then get them to continue to care and continue to participate, which I think even today, that's what being online is really all about. So I think that's kind of how we took what we really love to do and kind of that excitement of getting people to do something that you thought was fun. We're taking that to like our real life jobs.
So, what are the things that you know for sure that you learned in that experience that you're like, if I am going to engage people to care or also bring them from a digital space to a in real life space, like these are the things I know that you either have to do, you have to have, or you got to like hit home.
Yeah. I think that, over the years, a lot of people have asked us, did you have a business plan? Did you know that Muni or public transit was like one of the top search terms in San Francisco? Is that why you started this project? And honestly, no, that's not how we started. We started because we found that we were naturally talking about what happened on the bus. We were noticing that people loved talking about it, and we liked to do it. We cared about it. So I feel like for the lesson that I'm taking away from the success of Media Diaries and like kind of the fact that we're able to continue is that it needs to be something that people want to do, they're already doing, that they already care about. I think it's more about observing the communities around you, what they're doing, and how you can highlight what they already care about rather than kind of forcing them to do something that you think is a good business idea. Right? I think a lot of things are good on paper, but like how do you be more kind of observant about your community and kind of looking at their behaviors of what they naturally care about, and then how do you make that easier for them to do? So I think it's more about like noticing, observing, like caring, rather than you can make the business plan later when you find out it does work.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I hear about Pop Sugar, that's like, fashion and beauty
Yeah.
and that's a totally different, I'd say, sector than say transportation.
Yes.
What did you learn in that area
Hmm.
that you feel like either carried over or shifted a little bit?
Well, when I was at Pop Sugar, I worked on the influencer business. So I think, I came into that job having actually known a lot of bloggers and influencers in San Francisco who were writing about all kinds of different things. And with the understanding of like, if you're a creative person online, what do you care about and what you might need? So working on the influencer business at Pop Sugar is really about like, if you're a fashion blogger, that's what they were called now back then and now creators, right? Like what are you most likely to, what kinds of opportunities do you want? What are you most likely to want to monetize? How would you balance that with like the authenticity of your own content, and like what kind of tech tools will make that easier? So, I came into Pop Sugar really because I had so many contacts in the influencer community locally. But I will say, as we know now, creators from like one sectors to another, there are really different industries. You have like folks are writing about lifestyle and fashion, and like their world and opportunities are really different from creators that might be writing about sports or gaming. Like the norms are different, cultures are different. So I think taking away from being a creator myself and having built a community myself and the Diaries, that's how I really came into Pop Sugar. But of course, starting to learn a lot about fashion, beauty. I got to go to Fashion Week for a couple of years. That was really,
I remember
really
that.
amazing.
I remember
Yeah.
that. And I
Yeah.
remember seeing some of the cool stuff you would be wearing. And I'm like, what is this? And you're like, oh, this designer. I was like, okay, I see you. I was like, sounds like a really cool job. And you're like, yeah, it's cool, but it's stressful, but it's cool.
It is really cool. I mean, being able to go to Fashion Week and like tag along with the influencers I was working with, like, you read fashion magazines at like, when you're a teenager, you kind of never thought you're gonna be sitting there, and like the
Yeah.
music and the lights and everything. Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So let's, I guess, migrate to your Meta experience, because I think that's when it really scaled. And then you shifted more into working with community-based organizations or nonprofits, or just
Hmm.
that side of things, which is a totally, again, another pivot, a totally different group of people, and just building, I guess, brand and how to partner. I think this is for me when I reached out to you, I was like, this is the part that I think is the 3.0, like the next level for what's happening right now. And then just
Hmm.
people realizing, oh wow, like there's like this is happening, and what does this mean, and what does this look like? So tell me more about what you did with them.
Well, the at the very beginning when I joined Meta, that was when Meta was Facebook, actually. So I was there for quite a while. I was actually working on a team that also worked with influencers. So it was kind of a natural shift from my work at Pop Sugar, working with fashion influencers, to Meta, working with influencers of all different kinds. And within that team, we also grew to work with nonprofits and then community builders and creators. So I think, through my career, I feel like one job opens a door, and you kind of go into this room and there's like all this other stuff that you can do. Meta, like my core job was business operations and a lot of what we call partner success. Basically, if you're a creator on Meta, how can you build community and be successful? So within that sort of partnership realm, I worked with nonprofits to help them raise money online. I've worked with creators to help them build community and monetize. So I feel like I'm really, through like the last 15 years, getting to know a lot of different little corners on the internet of people that want to either be able to be their creative selves and earn a living from it, or build a community where you can really talk about the things that you're passionate about and come together and do something in real life, which I feel like all of that still ties back to where Me Diary started, right? Like over the years, occasionally I give like guest lectures at journalism schools, and I meet a lot of students who are anxious to map out like kind of their career trajectory. And I was thinking about this back in our college days, these jobs that we have today didn't even exist.
Did not exist. and
No.
and I think because we are like that ex-millennial on the cusp of like the internet is when we kind of started in working and in school. Like the internet, I mean, I've been enjoying the digital transformation that has happened, because I think we both remember life before the internet. We're probably one of the few generations left of people who, you know, I always tell people, you used to have to go to the airport and like find the person without using a cell phone. Like they have to just stand in front of a particular airline, and you may sometimes circle around 2, 3 times to find them, but you would find them. I mean, now there's that, like, you call them, you tell them where you're at, you wave them down. I mean, you have a car come in and pick you up.
Oh yeah,
That doesn't even have a driver in it anymore. Like, it's just
and we used to print out MapQuest directions. You had to look on a piece of paper. I mean, so primitive.
right? So I feel like when I hear about the jobs that are coming, or people are like trying to, I'm like, we are still figuring it out. We are still learning more. I mean, AI is coming, is here, et cetera. And so there's so many things that are going to come as a result of that. And I don't see it as a replacement as much as it is like an enhancement or just
Hmm.
another tool. But I do know that, when I think about the work that is happening now within communities and bridging the gap between, how we used to do things and what I think is looking forward now. I would love to hear what, what you were able to see and do at, your role in Meta, but like also where you see these things going now, given all that's going on.
Yeah, I talked about working with nonprofits when I first joined Meta, and one of the most, I think, exciting things that I worked on was actually around disaster relief. And I think a lot of times natural disasters can be, the needs are very localized, and a lot of people from afar want to be able to have more like on the ground impact, but you don't know like what is the nonprofit or like organization that's doing on the ground work like in the most kind of immediate way in a small town that maybe you haven't heard of. So through like technology and really like kind of crowdfunding tech, and really through connections that are built on Facebook, we were able to help people that are in the states or in different countries where the natural disasters might be. We were able to help them find a more like kind of local and immediate organization that's doing work on the ground, facilitating their donations that way. So like that's one of the most exciting things that I worked on at Meta, where I felt like I could have really not imagined this happening. So I feel like one of the things I noticed is the internet is getting really big, but there are now ways to help you like be more immediate, like and be in that more like smaller, more local circle of influence and contribution. So that's really exciting. It was, I think, through the work that I had experienced there, easier for people to find like local organizations or local groups that are, maybe in your neighborhood, even like could be as small and immediate as that. So I feel like, at the beginning of our career, it feels like we're like in this vast, internet universe. But there's now like possibility to be more local, be more immediate, and kind of build your own community in the way that you want. So I think that part's really exciting to me. I do think that I hear a lot of young people, and I don't say that their goal is to be an influencer or to be a creator. I don't know if you're hearing this in in your
Yes,
circles.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Everyone, I think because it's so ubiquitous and there's a generation that has grown up watching YouTube,
Hmm.
watching Instagram,
Yeah.
to be an influencer or a creator is seen and considered a, a job or something that you can do. And it is.
Hmm.
However, I'm not sure sometimes if people know what that means in terms of like longevity, in terms of a business plan, as you would say.
Hmm.
Um, so what have you been, I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that, I've been in the influencer space for quite a while. And I've seen, the bloggers became influencers, became creators, and, kind of the marketplace of kind of monetization possibilities. I think that it is, being honest, like it is a hard gig,
It
right?
is.
Like you're really balancing like what you feel truly is your kind of creative outlet to like where the money might be. And not all the content that you make might be like shoppable retail content or like lead naturally to a sponsor. So I think being a creator nowadays, it is possible, but the trade-offs are real in terms of, like kind of the kind of content that you're going to be creating and how much time are you going to be spending looking at analytics versus like maybe editing videos your actual favorite thing to do. So I think that, I hear a lot of young people, wanting to be in the creator space. And I do think there needs to be more conversations about the business side of it. And as a creator, what does that look like? And are you going to be willing to go there?
Yeah. I think because I am starting this community and I know digital storytelling is a big part of why a lot of older, pre-internet organizations that may have long, you know, 50, 60-year histories that I hear saying, where are the young people? We can't find the young people. And then you look at their digital presence and it's like, ooh, this is like why you're not finding the young people because your website's either not looking, sexy enough or
Mm-hmm.
you aren't building SEO into your strategy, or you don't even know what SEO is, or you
Mm-hmm.
aren't really sure how you can leverage apps and social as a means of driving traffic. I mean, I have an organization I'm on the board for, and they are working with us, a community here in LA that has a lot of street vendors as well as merchants, like actual, you know, retail stores,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to find the balance between making sure both groups are able to get, money and bring traffic to the physical place, and then using social media to do that. And so when I think about these more complex problems of how do you drive people to come to your retail area using these tools that we have, but also making it so that you're bringing in, families, you're bringing in, younger people, but you're also respecting, the historic nature of a neighborhood and
Yeah.
what it's been built like. I think about what you've been doing with these various, types of orgs, having an influencer maybe walk
Mm-hmm.
around your neighborhood and talk to people, or creating some kind of, I talked about a scavenger hunt yesterday. I was like, what if you were to create a scavenger hunt within this retail area so that people could stop at different places, and this is how you can drive them to move around the community. It's just I feel like we've got a lot of things available to us, and if anything, people don't know what to use, how much to use, or maybe aren't even familiar with some of it. So if you were to, like, I'd say, take your expertise, what you've done,
Mm-hmm.
what are some things that are, I don't want to say easy lifts, or just things
Yeah.
that people can do
Mm-hmm.
to to make their stories heard.
Yeah. I think when I was at Meta, I have met a lot of organizations and some really sizable organizations who still rely on direct mail as their primary source of like fundraising and getting in touch with people. And I think that comes from like you said, like some organizations are really long established and like had that kind of direct mail connection with maybe their existing base, but then you have a new like generation or two of people who like don't even read their email, much less their snail mail, right? So I think for any like organization, it's really hard to like kind of step away from the thing that you know. In this case, could be direct mail. So the thing that you don't know that you know other people are doing could be like digital. And the thing I learned is that there's so many channels out there that you probably can't focus on them all. And I think that you have to pick and choose a channel that comes most naturally to your content. And how you would know is really only through testing. I I personally feel really passionate about like the throwing spaghettis on the wall period where like you see what works and then you kind of pick the one or two that you think are most viable and doing it there. I see a lot of people trying to do like all the things, all the different channels, and you really can't keep up and you're not kind of excelling at any one channel. And now I see a lot more companies, maybe like, let's say they'll double down on their LinkedIn if that is kind of, if they're like more B2B, right? Or maybe they'll focus really on their Instagram if it's something, they have a lot of like visually compelling content. So I would say like not trying to do everything will probably be, and just finding your focus will probably be something I would recommend to just about anyone.
Yeah.
And testing, I think, yeah, you don't know until you do it.
So what does testing look like? Because I think people hear testing and they think, well, does this mean we have to try it for 3 months, 6 months? Like, what does testing mean?
Well, I think so. Let me tell you a story about what New Diaries recently did that really, really surprised me. So, for like the last, I don't know, like 12 years, we've had a live event twice a year, right? It's like storytelling event about like 200 people come. We're always sold out, and it's an exciting time to meet like your storytellers and your audience in person. So we were very, very kind of wedded to that cadence, and we think, people are waiting for it, expecting it. They know it is twice a year. Like this is the cadence that they know. We recently started including two new leaders in New Diaries to, take the reins from Tara and I. We've been doing it since 2008. We wanted to have new people and new ideas. And our new editors, Kat and Sarah, they said, why don't we do an art market for the holidays rather than like a live show? And I was thinking, like when you go to an art market and you see these vendors, and I'm thinking, what, like, is there like 20 or 30 people at a time showing up? Like, are we really going to get more exposure from this? Right. So what they did was they invited about, I think, 15 vendors, and we actually had someone at the door of our art market counting the people that are coming in. And the thing about the art market is that the show is 2 hours, but the art market is 5 hours. It's one afternoon, and in that afternoon, about 700 people came.
What?
Yeah.
Talk about a test.
Yeah. So, for 2 years, like for like twice a year, for for like, for almost 12 years, we had these events that were, like kind of in person, visually exciting, but we had a capacity, which is the capacity of the venue that we couldn't exceed. And in San Francisco, like the venue sizes are kind of tricky. You have a lot that are in the 100 and 200 people range. And then then the next kind of size venue, you're in like the 500 attendees kind of range. So we kind of never explore that. Like how do we know if we can fill that? And is that going to, that scale of event, is that going to feel like us? So we never really tested that. It was a lot of risk to test. But what Sarah and Kat did with the holiday market, and this is now a recurring art market that Mia Diaries does, now we know we can get 600, 700 different people to show up in the afternoon who can come like at a time that's convenient for them, right? All afternoon. And they can bring a friend, support local artists, and really like the exposure from that was so much bigger.
Wow.
Yeah, so I share that with you because I think there's, in a lot of ways, you don't know until you do it.
I totally, I understand that. I
And
totally
also,
understand that.
the other thing that's important about this story was that Sarah and Kat had someone at the door counting people coming in. Like, and that's really about measurement, right?
Yeah.
You got to have the measurement set up before you test anything. So yeah, like I was really surprised and obviously like, really
Yeah.
proud.
Almost 4 times more people came
Hmm.
through.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. A holiday well, people love during the holidays,
Hmm.
trying to support a local artist, also being able to connect that with your experience of and so it's yeah, I can see how that's just really smart idea. I
Well,
love
the
that.
other thing is, when we do a live show, it's a storytelling show. Every story is like, 8 minutes, and people aren't going to sit there for hours and hours. So like we have maybe like 5 or 6 storytellers. So that's 5 or 6 people getting their communities to come and support them. Whereas at the art market, we had 15 vendors, each with their own kind of customer base who wanted to see them in real life. So I think the skill of how many different communities we can bring together with like a different type of event was a big learning moment. And also, like there's also your time of organizing events and like or in the case of like testing different maybe the social channels, there's your time of like standing up a calendar. So I think all of that like uh, we take into account of, are we going to test this again? How difficult was this to do and was it worth it? Right.
Let's talk about how to partner and how you choose your partners or people to do things with. I mean, you hear about, we have to be aligned in terms of, our values or that there's synergy vibes, we have to get along. That's
Hmm.
yes, that has to happen. However, I know some people are like, it's more so a variety. We have things that are different, and then some people are like, there's enough room for there to be similarity that we should do things together, even if we are, I think, sharing the same type of work or space within a city or an area. What are your thoughts on that?
Are you talking about partnership as a creator?
Partnership as a creator
Hmm.
and partnership as an organization.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
As a creator, and I've worked a lot on like the brand sponsor side for creators in my past jobs. So I've seen a lot of how different brands approach creators and how creators react to them. Right. So I some of the kind of synergies that you're talking about, that's definitely important in terms of like, am I approaching creators that would use this product? And is this creator willing to think of a way that's more natural for them to talk about this product, right? Like I think that's in everyone's interest, right? For both on the brand side and on the creator side. So I think one of the most important things is both as a creator and as a brand, like, are you willing to like put your cards out on the table? What do you like and communicate? What are your expectations from the brand and from the creator? And like, can we meet in the middle? Yeah, I think we've really come to a time where it is possible for like both sides to have that open communication. I think at the beginning of creators being able to monetize, like kind of the power dynamics wasn't really clear. Like, do I have to do everything that this brand tells me to do? Or can I tell them and suggest to them, I think if I did it this other way, my audience will react better to it. So I think we're in a better place now where like brands and creators can have a more open dialogue about what kind of content ultimately will really accomplish what you're both looking for. So I think that's really important to talk about, like, so that it's not kind of just one way. The brand wants me to do this and I have to do this.
Yeah.
It's
No,
more like bigger picture.
yeah.
What are we trying to do?
What are we trying to do? And then partnerships between two organizations. You know, have you seen, I'd say, you see the collabs all the,
Mm,
two organizations come together. And I mean, you see this, I feel like all the time in fashion for sure. You
yeah.
see this in beauty. I think you do see nonprofits and community orgs doing it. I don't know that they do it as much as maybe some of the
Like kind of retail oriented, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think in that case, when you have two organizations, you're really like businesses talking to each other. And I do think like, what are you both measuring? Like,
Yeah.
what does success look like for both of you? And like, do they intersect? I think, a lot of people in partnerships can attest to this, right? Like if you're not clear about like ultimately what you're driving at, you could be really frustrated like in the middle of this partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and also like when we talk about like communities, like do we have very similar communities or like do they have some overlapping interests so that we're introducing them to something new, right? So
Okay.
I think some of the unexpected types of collaborations are really fun. And just because of that, you're introducing audience to something new.
Okay. So now that we're in, I don't even, I'm scared to call it a post-pandemic world because I don't want to jinx anything because the cold and flu season this time of year has been hurt terrible. I've heard some. I know a lot of people that were sick over the holiday, and they were like, "This is not good." Have you noticed anything from who we were doing this community building and digital storytelling in a pre-COVID world versus now, where I feel like getting people to come back out, getting people to do things, getting people to just be engaged, it feels like I don't want to say pulling them, but you're really having to have a value proposition or something for them to come out. They don't just show up willingly anymore.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think some things I've noticed that are really interesting. So, Me Diaries didn't do any live shows in the pandemic for about the beginning of the first year and the second year. The shows usually are in April, and as you recall, March was when everything was like, no more. Yeah, so for about 2 years, we had skipped our shows. When we came back, we had realized the landscape was different. The venues that we are working with usually had two shows per night, like an early show and a late show. That doesn't happen anymore. There's no such thing as a late show. It's one event and you're it. The fees are higher. I think a lot of event planners have like a bar minimum. People are drinking less. So I think like all the economics of hosting a live event is different. Like for a venue to really make money from a show or event, like you're the only thing they have that night. So you're under a lot of pressure to make it count. If you're a smaller organization, you're a lot less likely to get like top billing or like a weekend, like some kind of more like desirable time slot. So I think the pattern of how people go out and do things have really changed, especially in that like kind of late night going out sort of routine. I just don't see that as much anymore. So I think that's why the holiday market that Me Diaries it really worked because it was in the afternoon when you kind of like show up whenever you wanted. So I think like the going out really late at night, particularly in like a crowded space, I'm feeling that at least in our experience in the Bay Area, that there's still some hesitation there and people aren't as used to it or want to anymore. So they want more flexibility and like maybe a different kind of environment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've noticed the same thing. I feel like I'm in LA and traffic is never not on people's minds to go anywhere. It's okay, how long is it going to take me to get there? And so it's a commitment to leave your house. Like you are deciding that this is something you want to do and that you want to be in the room of wherever that is because you not only have to get yourself ready, now you have to battle 30, 45 minutes, an hour, depending on what direction you're going. And so to get an event or to get people to come to an event, it can't just be vibes and a drink or networking. Like it has to be like something that they are going to say, I want to be in that room. I want to be there. I'm going to meet people that, I want to meet there, or I'm already going to meet people that I know are going there. And so
Mhm.
I can't miss it. And it almost feels like you have to create FOMO, or just like FOMO is a thing that you now have to make it feel like you want to be there, because people just are like, I could stay in my pajamas and eat this popcorn and get under this blanket and I'm good.
Well, sometimes I feel that. I so feel that. But sometimes I'm like, is that post pandemic or is that us aging? I'm not really sure. How do you know?
Is it my robe or is it this party? No, I totally get that. I mean, I do see that. I definitely do. But I mean, statistically, what I'm hearing is, and this is now we're gonna sound like old ladies, but like
Which we
how
are
we,
not.
which we are not. I feel like because at least I remember you and we would go to dinner once a month. The girls would meet up. We would have dinner. It would be a thing. We would catch up on our lives. We would do all of that. We would, also hear about things, share it. Like you said, late night, like nobody was concerned about going out a certain hour. And I don't even hear that talk that much around the generation of folks that are supposed to be, the 20s, the early 30s. Like I just don't hear people going out. Like, I mean, we used to go out on a weeknight and then go to the job the next day. I mean, I don't know. Are people doing that? I hear that. I hear
I hope so.
I hope so too. I hope so too, because your knees are not going to be able to do it another 20 years. So get out there.
I
Uh,
mean, in all seriousness, I think maybe part of it is, like coming into my, I will call it middle age, but whatever the stage of life is called. But I do think, the fact that like we did invite, like younger people to lead up Mini Diaries, because we really didn't know how like people in their 20s are thinking about going out and what appeals to them,
yeah.
right? Like we can imagine it, but we don't really know. So it was really important to me to, you know, have people who are like in this demographic and like in that community who can tell me like what appeals to people and what will people do, right? Might not be what we thought we did when we were in that age. And I do think like going out patterns are different. I am noticing that people will get out and do stuff if there is a personal connection to them, right? Which is why I think so much of the strength of like having a holiday sale or having a show or having a community or online discussion is to have people like who are like starring in the event to reach out to their own communities to say, I'm going to be there. Will you come so that we can connect? So I think the personal connection is even more important nowadays for people to like get out and do stuff. So like really building that into anything that we do, I feel like now is like having that connection of why you would show up to for somebody else. Like that's so important.
Yeah. No, this is great. I'm going to start to wrap up because I'm ready to move into our, I guess, closing questions.
Okay.
And for me, I ask every guest, how are you reimagining your place in the community today?
Well, I recently moved from San Francisco to Austin to be near family. So I'm coming from a place where I lived in San Francisco for 25 years. I'm like, I know this place, to a new place where, I'm having to find my like friend making muscles. So in 2025, imagining myself to be in more of a discovery mode. I'm discovering what my community can offer and like really where I belong in this community. I'm, trying lots of different things. I'm mentoring people. I joined a cookbook club. Like I think for me, 2025 is really about discovery. How do I discover the friendship making muscles and like the, learning about a new place type of experience. So yeah,
Yeah,
discovery is where I'm at.
I love that. What's a song that instantly brings you back to the feeling of being connected and in community, and why?
A song.
A song.
Oh, that's hard. I don't know. Let me think. I'm
you wanna, and it can be like friends, it can be family, like it can be, I mean, given we just had the holidays, if you want to throw a Christmas ditty in there, it's up to you. What's the song that instantly brings you back to the feeling of being connected and in community?
I'm gonna say is the Golden Girls theme song.
Thank you for being a
That's right.
friend.
Yeah, like we as a holiday tradition, we go see the Golden Girls in drag every year, and the audience sings that song together. And friendship is so important. So
I
yeah,
love
Golden
this.
Girls theme song. Thank you for being a friend. That's my
Thank you for
song.
being a friend. Yes. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for coming on today. I appreciate it so much. I am going to put your information in the show notes. Eugenia is, I'd say, in this not only discovery of her new community, but also just like doing interesting things. So I am so happy that you joined me today. Thank you so much. And let's go.
All right, thank you for having me.
If this conversation moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because every week we're bringing you more stories of real transformation. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and tag the folks in your circle who need to hear this. Want to go deeper? Check out the Community Impact Collective. Sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. Now is the time. Are you in?